Merhaba arkadaşlar, selamlar tekrardan herkese. Evet, şimdi haftamızı bitireceğiz. Son dersimiz. Kaldığımız yerden devam edelim. Evet, bakalım şimdilik. Evet arkadaşlar. Şimdi en son buradaki bu alıştırma yapmıştık. 4 numaralı alıştırmayı okumuştuk. Ondan sonra onunla ilgili buradaki 5 numaralı alıştırmayı yapmıştık. Şimdi bir listening alıştırmamız var. Orada kaldık. Oradan devam edeceğiz. Öncelikle dinleyeceğiz bir kere. Now we are going to listen once and say which activity here the speaker talks about, and if it was a good experience or not. We are going to say that, and then we are going to listen once again and put the events below here in the order they happened. These are the events in the listening exercise, but they are in mixed order, so we are going to put them in the correct order, in the order they happened, okay? And after that, we have another listening exercise. All right. So, as I said, we are going to listen first and say which activity the speaker talks about and if it was a good experience or not, okay? Then let's go.
Unit 10, page 41, exercises 6 and 7.
My manager, her name's Verity, she's very keen on team building. Verity believes that we don't work as a team, so one day she organised a team building away day. 2 days before that, an advert had come to the office for Incentivise, and Verity knew at once that they were the right people for us. We had a choice of paintballing, rafting, or bungee jumping. We all chose rafting, and then Incentivise told us that their instructor hadn't passed her health and safety test, so we couldn't do that. Our second choice was paintballing. On a cold, rainy day, we ended up in the middle of a forest in the countryside, freezing and wishing we were in bed. Early that morning, an old bus had picked us up at the office and taken us there. Unfortunately, it stopped 5 kilometres before the paintball area, and we had to walk the rest of the way. At the area, Incentivise gave us some old jackets and paintball guns and put us into 2 teams. We started at 1 o'clock, but by 20 past 1, the paintball guns had stopped working. At this point, we had had enough and we decided to go back to the office. By the time we had reached the office again, our team had written a long letter of complaint. So I guess the teamwork activity had worked.
All right. Ay Allah'ım ya. Okay. So I think it's quite clear which activity the speaker talks about, right? Which activity? Paintballing. Okay. It was a paintballing activity, and was it a good experience or not? Not. Yes, it was quite a bad experience for them. But we can say it worked somehow. So they came together as a team and wrote a long complaint letter together. So, well, it worked. It kind of worked, right? Okay, now we are going to listen once again and then put the events in the order they happened, okay? So let's read them in mixed order and see what events are here. They started paintballing. Paintballing was chosen. They wrote a letter of complaint. They divided into 2 teams. They arrived back at the office. Verity organized an away day. An advert came through the post. The guns stopped working. An old bus picked them up. All right. So they give us the first event. An advert came through the post, and we are going to put the other events in order, all right? Now let's listen once again.
Unit 10, page 41, exercises 6 and 7.
My manager, her name's Verity, she's very keen on team building. Verity believes that we don't work as a team, so one day she organised a team building away day. 2 days before that, an advert had come to the office for Incentivise, and Verity knew at once that they were the right people for us. We had a choice of paintballing, rafting, or bungee jumping. We all chose rafting, and then Incentivise told us that their instructor hadn't passed her health and safety test, so we couldn't do that. Our second choice was paintballing. On a cold, rainy day, we ended up in the middle of a forest in the countryside, freezing and wishing we were in bed. Early that morning, an old bus had picked us up at the office and taken us there. Unfortunately, it stopped 5 kilometres before the paintball area, and we had to walk the rest of the way. At the area, Incentivise gave us some old jackets and paintball guns and put us into 2 teams. We started at 1 o'clock, but by 20 past 1, the paintball guns had stopped working. At this point, we had had enough and we decided to go back to the office. By the time we had reached the office again, our team had written a long letter of complaint. So I guess the teamwork activity had worked.
All right. Okay. The first thing that happens in here is an advert came through the post. Okay, an advert came through the post, and then what happens? Which one comes next? What happens next? Verity, their manager, right? Verity organized an away day. Okay, and then what happens? Which one comes next? Paintballing was chosen. Yes, paintballing was chosen. And then what happens? Which one comes next? The next one is an old bus picked them up. An old bus picked them up. All right, then which one comes next? They divided into 2 teams. This is the next one. And then which one? They started paintballing. Okay, and what happens next? Which one comes next? The guns stopped working, right? And after that, they wrote a letter of complaint. And the final one is they arrived back at the office. Yes. By the time they arrived back at the office, they had already written the letter, right? So that choice, they wrote a letter of complaint, comes before they arrived back at the office, in case there is a mix-up here. I wanted to clarify. All right. So we have another listening exercise. We are going to listen this and complete the sentences with past perfect or past perfect, past simple or past perfect verbs, okay? We are going to complete these empty spaces. So listen carefully and don't forget to take notes, all right? All right, let's go.
Unit 10, page 41, exercise 8. 1.
2 days before that, an advert had come to the office for Incentivise.
2.
Their instructor hadn't passed her health and safety test.
3.
Early that morning, an old bus had picked us up at the office.
4.
Unfortunately, it stopped 5 kilometres before the paintball area.
5.
By 1:20, the paintball guns had stopped working.
6.
So we had to go back to the office.
7.
Our team had written a long letter of complaint.
8.
So I guess the teamwork activity had worked.
Good. All right. So we have listened. Let's complete the sentences. 1. 2 days before that, an Edward blah blah to the office for incentivize. All right. What comes here? 2 days before that, an Edward had come to the office for incentivize. 2. Their instructor blah blah her health and safety test. What kind of an instructor do they have? Well, their instructor hadn't passed, right? Hadn't passed her health and safety test. And I think it tells you something, right? Tells you something. They have an instructor and she cannot pass her health and safety test. Three, early that morning, an old boss blah blah us up at the office. Early that morning, an old boss, what comes here? Had picked, right? Early that morning, an old boss had picked us up at the office. 4, unfortunately, it blah blah 5 kilometers before the paintball area. Unfortunately, it stopped, right? It stopped 5 kilometers before the paintball area. 5, by 1:20 or 20 past 1, the paintball guns, blah, blah, working. By 1:20, the paintball guns had stopped working. They begin at 1 and just 20 minutes later, all the guns stopped working. 6, so we blah, blah to go back to the office. So we decided to go back to the office. 7, our team blah, blah, a long letter of complaint. Our team had written a long letter of complaint. And 8, so I guess the teamwork activity, blah, blah. So I guess the teamwork activity had worked, right? Because they wrote the letter together. They were angry as one. Okay. All right. Now, we have a paragraph here. And it says, complete the story with the past simple or past perfect of the verbs in brackets. All right, so let's do that. Last week, our boss, blah, blah, a staff party at a posh restaurant in the central town. Last week, our boss, our verb is organize. We are going to make it simple past, organized. Last week, our boss organized a staff party at a posh restaurant in the central town. Earlier that week, she blah blah to the restaurant owner. Earlier that week, she, what are we going to do with this verb speak? We are going to make it past perfect. Yes, earlier that week, she had spoken to the restaurant owner. He said that we could go anytime because the restaurant, blah, blah, quiet all the previous week. We could go anytime because the restaurant, our verb is be. It is going to be past perfect, so it is going to be had been. The restaurant had been quiet all the previous week. So my boss, blah, blah, the restaurant, and told all of us that the company would pay for the meal. So, my boss, what are we going to do with this verb book? Simple past tense, right? Booked. So my boss booked the restaurant and told all of us that the company would pay for the meal. We blah blah a major contract the week before, and she wanted to celebrate. We blah blah a major contract the week before. So we are going to make this word win into past perfect, right? We had won. We had won a major contract the week before, and she wanted to celebrate. When the day of the party arrived, we blah blah the office early and headed for the city center. So, what is it going to be? What are we going to do with the verb leave? It is going to be just simple past. When the day of the party arrived, we left the office early and headed for the city center. Sorry. What a disappointment when we got there. The restaurant blah blah due to lack of business. But they blah blah our boss, and we were left outside with nowhere to go. Oh, what a disappointment when we got there. The restaurant blah blah due to lack of business. What are we going to do with shut down first? It's going to be past perfect. All right. The restaurant had shut down due to lack of business, but they blah blah not tell our boss. They hadn't told, right? It's going to be past perfect again, but they hadn't told our boss, and we were left outside with nowhere to go. Well, that is really disappointing. Okay. Well, we are going to do this now. The next exercise, we are going to choose the correct words to complete the tips about making small talk. All right. 1, make a nice or rude remark about where you are and what's happening. Well, it's of course going to be nice, right? Make a nice remark, not rude. Make a nice remark about where you are and what is happening. Okay. 2, ask open or closed questions. Which one? Evet. Ne olacak arkadaşlar? Bu konuyu işlemiştik ana kitapta daha önce hatırlarsanız. Ask open questions, right? Open questions, not closed. Ask open questions. 3, never or try to make personal remarks about the other person, such as their clothes, hair, etc. Is it going to be never or try to? Never make personal remarks or try to make personal remarks. It's going to be never, right? Never make personal remarks about the other person, such as their clothes and hair, etc. 4, have something interesting to say. It's best to talk or not to talk about politics or religion. Not to, right? Not to talk. Have something interesting to say. It's but not to talk about politics or religion. And these are not subjects of small talk. All right. 5, be careful about your personal space. Stand as close as possible to or keep a distance from the other person. Be careful about your personal space. So it is going to be keep a distance from, not be as close as possible to, because it will be uncomfortable for both you and for other person, right? If you are not familiar to each other, so you should keep a personal distance from each other. It's best. So be careful about your personal space, keep a distance from the other person. And 6, have an exit line ready so that you can end the conversation abruptly or politely. Of course, it's going, politely, not abruptly. Do that. Have an exit line, a kind, nice one, so you can end the conversation politely. All right. Evet sevgili arkadaşlar, şimdi zamanımız doldu. Haftayı da bitiriyorum. Şimdi burada çok az alıştırmam kaldı. O yüzden önümüzdeki hafta bu çok az kalan alıştırmaları yapmayacağım. Son 2 haftamız kalıyor. Bu 2 hafta başka bir kitaptan alıştırmalar yaparak devam edeceğim arkadaşlar ve yani bir 2-3 alıştırma yapıp sonra kitaba başlamak yerine direkt o kitaba başlamayı düşünüyorum. O yüzden bundan sonraki son 2 haftamız farklı bir kaynaktan olacak. Oradan yapacağım derslerimizi ve o şekilde de dönemimizi artık sona erdireceğiz. Şimdi bu ana kitabımız olan bu kitabı tamamlamış oluyoruz burada. Ve dediğim gibi son 2 haftada farklı bir kaynakla dönemimizi tamamlayacağız. Evet, o zaman gençler kendinize çok iyi bakın. Önümüzdeki hafta görüşünceye kadar kendinize dikkat edin. Herkese iyi hafta sonları diliyorum. Görüşmek üzere gençler. Hoşça kalın.